And this is, in my opinion, it's a pretty interesting debate. Who is the most at fault for this collapse? I have 5 options. My computer is nearing death, so someone else might have to pick this up if my computer dies. But option number 1 out of the 5, the goaltending. So here's some numbers for you. Since February 17th, which really is when I think this thing started to go off the rails.
Yeah.
It was that game against the Maple Leafs. They lose in an overtime. A couple days later, they go to the Stadium Series game. They lose by a lot to the Devils. I don't really think they ever fully regained their footing after that. So I'm going back to since February 17th, 85.2 team save percentage. Over the past 2 weeks, so since the 7-game losing streak has started, 79.8.
Yikes.
This last 2 weeks, they've allowed 1 goal every 5 shots. Sometimes we do try to make it seem like things are more complicated when analyzing hockey than they actually are, when in reality, it all just kind of boils down to the goalies aren't stopping pucks.
Yes.
Is this the main reason why this is happening? Is it the goalies? Is that the person or people or position that we blame the most for this?
I had a revelation while sitting on the couch with the office blankie about this, because I think I was just thinking, like, for some reason I was thinking about Torts winning the Jack Adams. And then I was thinking about that joke everyone makes about how the Jack Adams is just the best goaltender award, which it often kind of is. And then I was like, well, wait, it's just goalies. Like, that's all it is. Good goalie, good team. Bad goalie, bad team. Like, there's it's like the goalie.
It's like the meme with the spaceman looking at the Earth.
Yes.
And he's just like, wait, it's all just. It's like, wait, it's all just goaltending.
Yeah,
And then Kelly's behind him with a gun.
Yeah,
always has been.
I was like, fuck, there's nothing you can do. If your goalie is shit, that's it. You're done. That's it. You're done. There's nothing you can do to dig yourself out of that hole. And if your goalie's really good, like ours were at the start of the season, then your team's good. Yeah, so, all right, thanks for watching. It's goalies.
JP, but there was your thoughts?
There was at one point where we were all high in Ersson and thinking, like, potentially this could be our goalie for the future. Like,
I still think he could be. But obviously this run has not helped people's confidence in him.
No. I can't write him off because everyone's played bad in this run right now. And so, in general, the goalie position is put in a tough spot, especially ever since the Carter Hart situation. We've had Ersson have a boatload of work to do since then. And obviously we put Fedotov in a tough spot too. So it's tough for me to put all the blame on the goalies, but for sure they definitely could have played better. But I don't think it's the main reason why this is
okay. So you're no, it's not the primary reason.
No.
Here's one thing I will say in defense of the goalies, and I think Sam Ersson has been real bad, especially over this past week when he's played, and the week before. I guess the Chicago game was rough. He's very clearly either gassed or regression is hitting him hard, and we're realizing he's not an NHL caliber goalie. I really hope it's the former and not the latter. One way or the other, one of those two things is happening right now. The one thing in defense I will say for the goalies is this. This game was a little bit of an aberration. They gave up a lot of shots. But in a lot of these games, the defense is playing a weird sort of way where they're not giving up many shots on goal, but the shots on goal they're giving up are really good. Like, there will be games where they give up 20 shots, but like 8 of them are high danger. And that's not doing the goalies any favors from 2 points of view.
No.
Number one, it's not doing them any favors for their save percentage because they're not getting a bunch of easy puff shots to pump up their save percentage. But number two, and this is an interesting point that I've heard people like Brian Boucher and Jim Jackson bring up both on and off air, that it's harder for goalies to deal with quality chances when they're not getting a lot of work. And there's an element here where it's like the Flyers will play real good defense or offense that essentially amounts to defense because it's keep away with the puck for like 8 minutes and then give up a super high quality shot. That's tough for goalies.
Kind of happened last night in Buffalo.
Fair.
So that could be not helping the situation. Something I'll say in defense of the goalies. However, I am probably of the opinion that the goaltending is the biggest reason. Not the only reason.
No.
But if I had to pin it on one thing,
It's
so hard for a team to have confidence when they're terrified that every shot they allow is going to end up in the back of the net. It's so hard.
It feels like an insurmountable hurdle.
hurdle.
Something.
Yeah, that works.
It feels like once the goaltending goes as bad as the Flyers goaltending has gone, it's very hard to dig out of it.
It's very tough because
that said,
it's just so demoralizing.
Yeah. Scoring goals would be nice.
The finishing has been a major problem.
Yeah.
That has not helped by any means. Okay, so that's number one. Option one of the what do we blame? Goaltending, it seems like I am more on board with that. JP says no. Kelly, you're like on the fence.
It's definitely a factor.
Option two, John Tortorella.
John.
Torts.
So here's the case for blaming Torts. First thing is, and this is something that obviously a lot of people are going to theorize, did he lose the room after the Coots scratch? Right after the Coots scratch, he got the boost. The boost happened. For 3 or 4 games, they played better. Is it possible that that accelerated his message running short? That is explanation possible one. Explanation number two is one I'm more empathetic towards, is did he run these guys into the ground over the course of the year with his game over game lineup and deployment strategies? You know,
yes.
York and Sanheimer gas. One of the reasons why Couturier's fallen off is because he was used 20 minutes a night in the first half of the year.
11-7 more than he had
11-7 more than he had to. So I think there are 2 levels you can blame towards. One is if you believe in the theory that he's lost the team, which I don't know. Like, I don't know if he has or he hasn't. I worry that it was a possibility. I'm not saying it has. I'm just saying that, like, you just lost 6-2 to the Columbus Blue Jackets with 10 guys injured. I think it's reasonable to wonder. The other one, which I am more open to at the moment, is that he's run this team into the ground, both in terms of the way he has the team play and his deployment strategies. So that is option number 2, John Tortorella. Kelly, thoughts on Torts and his degree of blame for this?
So I think just base level, if you're going to give John Tortorella credit for the team performing well at the start of the season, then you have to at least hang some of this on him, because that's how this works. You don't get all of the praise and none of the jeers.
That's completely fair.
Now, also, we know that John Tortorella loses the room eventually.
Usually takes longer than people give him credit for.
Usually takes longer, but he does lose it. And I do think that it's plausible that not only scratching Couturier, but the way it was handled was probably not very popular among a locker room that I think you said several times, good friends, good vibes in the locker room.
Good vibes.
Everyone got along.
Good vibes.
Which I know over the last couple of years when things were going very poorly, people were very pissy about the idea that all of these guys liked each other. That was always weird to me. Seems like a good thing for a hockey team to like each other. But I do think that the comments that we heard from Coots about the way things were going behind the scenes, the comments that Tortorella made to the press about Sean Couturier when he was scratched, it was all just so, I think, needlessly nasty that I can very much see this locker room being like, you know what, fuck this guy. Like, nah, I'm not listening to you anymore. Like, fuck off. And I never really understood the idea, like, a team quitting on a coach never really made a lot of sense to me, because we've talked about this a million times covering this team when they've been bad the entire time. That professional athletes don't stop trying to win.
No, they want to win.
They don't know how to not win. Like, they're not going out there and throwing games because they're pissed off at John Tortorella.
Of course not. And that's never what I want to say that I think is going on.
I don't think you're saying that. But yeah. I'm saying that, like, the idea of them quitting on John Tortorella, I think, is more of, like, a subconscious thing.
I think it's more like the idea that maybe they're tuning him out.
Yeah.
Like, this week, John Tortorella went on the full court media blitz.
Yes, he
did.
He
has, after the Monday game, he calls the team soft. He says they have no balls. He says that there are some guys who, might not be able to deal with these kinds of games. Then 2 days later, he comes up and China does this like 15-minute long mea culpa where he's like, no, actually, I'm at fault too. And I'm trying to teach these guys and that kind of thing. But there's an element where you wonder at what point do the players, rather than be impacted by that and rather than being fired up by that, do they just roll their eyes and just like,
Yeah, now it's annoying.
Oh, here he goes again.
Yeah, right.
And that's when you're wondering, like, okay, has he lost his impact? This will be early. And my
Very
biggest
early.
argument against the this is all Tortorella's fault thing is that I don't think they are in this spot. I don't think they're in the position to have this collapse if John Tortorella isn't squeezing as much out of them as he did over the first part of the year. So it's hard for me to be too tough on him when without him, I think they are probably out of playoff contention by the beginning of February.
But also, though, isn't it his job to know, like, cool, you got them to late March in a playoff spot. Like, that's not the end game, John. Like, you have to get them to the playoffs if that's what the goal is. And it seems clear that obviously the front office has told us 1,000 times that the playoffs was not the goal for the front office. But I think it became clear like a third of the way through the season that for the players and for Torts, I'm sure, it got to be like, well, shit, maybe we can. So why don't we do it? And if that becomes the goal, then you have to know how hard you can push them so that they have gas left in the tank in April. And he obviously didn't do that properly if this is them being gassed, which is another thing I don't really buy because, again, they're professional athletes.
All right, JP.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it's Torts' fault for the collapse theory?
Look, it's hard to gain a locker room and then lose them in the same year. Now, I do know. Yeah. I do know that.
Are you sure?
I do know that in the past, Torts has been able to lose a locker after getting a team to a promised land. But in this type of situation, I think that again, like we talked about before, it's a lot of factors. But I don't think that Torts is the main factor here. I will say that some of the antics, like obviously scratching Coots, calling out the team in the media. We're talking about professional athletes. They are competitors. They may not like some of those things that Torts does with the media. So although I don't think that Torts is as big of a factor as the goaltending like we talked about, but I do think that some of those antics that happen off the ice may have rubbed some of these players the wrong way. But I still think that there are some other key factors here to this collapse.
Okay, so JP is still waiting.
Yes,
I think it seems like out of the three of us, Kelly is the most willing to put blame on Torts.
I just think that the collapse time-wise, and I know that they got that little bump after the scratching, but I do think that the timing of it makes me think that, and you mentioned it when we were watching the game, like, it might not have been a big deal, like, here in sports media, but in Canada, it was like, holy shit.
Oh, it was enormous.
John Tortorella scratched his captain, who has never been scratched once in his entire career. Like, it was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, as I've said, the Canadian hockey media treats the captaincy as if it's basically like one step below a god.
Right. And so the players absorb this information. Sean Couturier absorbs this information. There's no way that there wasn't a little bit of resentment, I think, when that happened. And so that makes me think, like, you got to give Torts a little bit of a... He might have earned this one.
All right.
Gary be adding into the super chat.
Yeah, let's check some super chats before we get to option number 3. So first super chat, we have Kev A. Is this the ceiling for Farabee? If so, should he be part of the future? I still really like Joel Farabee. However, he has been real bad for like the past month. And he certainly put me in a position where I am more open to the idea of trading him if the right trade comes around. Kelly, you just thought of something. What'd you think of, Kelly?
So we talked a lot. And sorry, this is going backwards. We talked a lot during the Hackstall era about how when one or two players start to go bad, you can like start, maybe they're hurt, maybe they're regressing, blah, 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 blah. When the whole team starts to go bad, that's when I think it's like, okay, what is the coach doing wrong here that's making everyone go to shit?
Yeah, but I guess the reason why I don't fully, I agree with that concept, but I guess where I'm coming from is that I never thought this team was that good.
I get
So,
what you're
like,
saying,
for
yeah.
me, it's less that, like, this is a good team gone bad. And for me, it's more of, like, this is a mediocre to whatever team that's finally kind of crashing back to where they probably should have been all
You
year.
think they should have been this bad all year?
Well, no, but when you add in the fact that they no longer have Carter Hart, when you add in the fact they no longer have Sean Walker, yes, I think if this team right now, a team without Carter Hart, a team without Sean Walker, a team that is, has whatever is left of Sean Couturier and whatever is left of Cam Atkinson, that team, yeah, I think that team is bad.
Okay.
So for me, it's more that, like, what we're seeing now is kind of the true talent level of this particular incarnation of the Flyers, sans Hart, sans first half Couturier, sans first half Atkinson, sans Walker. That's why it's hard for me to pin too much on John Tortorella. However, he deserves some blame for not being able to halt this. And we'll see over the next few weeks if the people above John Tortorella think he deserves even more blame than that. We shall see. I think we had another super chat, though.
Oh.
We got Torts can't make Sam Harrison save a puck from Gary B. Gary B, you are not wrong. He cannot make a goalie stop a puck,
Maybe if he
which
was
means
a good coach, he could.
Gary B, very much an option 1 person.
Evidently.
Option number 3, the blue line. This is related to option 4, but it's kind of different. The blue line core all year was, I would say, a surprising strength of the team.
Yeah.
Very surprising.
Over the past month and a half, they lost Drysdale, Sealer, and Ristolainen to injury. They traded Sean Walker. They ran Cam York and Travis Sanheim into the ground. Is it possible that this all stems from the fact that the defense just can't do the things tactically and stylistically that the Flyers need to do in order to win games?
I think it's a solid group that we had. And obviously in the beginning of the year it was much better, but like we talked about, York and Sanheim have had a lot of ice time out there and they're gas. We talked about Adard and Jennings looking pretty solid. I liked them as a third pairing. You just got Drysdale back. Obviously, you got Sealer back here as well. You've had a lot of moving pieces. Definitely the blue line is if I had to rank them, it'd be Torts, goaltending, and blue line. Goaltending, Torts, and then the blue line as far as the rankings, as far as what I would blame.
Mm-hmm.
Blue line's at the bottom right now.
Okay.
They're gas.
I mean,
they're the most gas unit.
See, my thing is that, like, when I say blame the blue line, it's not even blaming from a sense of frustration. It's more just blaming it from this is the reason. Because I'm not going to give Travis Sanheim and Cam York shit for getting exhausted because they had to play 30 minutes a night for a month. I think it's understandable that they are exhausted. But if they're exhausted and therefore they no longer can engineer the kind of breakouts that the Flyers need to do what they need to do to win games, then that is an explanation, or it's a plausible explanation as to why this has all gone so bad so quickly. If they are too tired, if Sealer and Drysdale, obviously they missed a ton of time, now they're back, but they're not at their peak because they're coming back from injuries. You had Mark Stahl in a game, Eric Johnson. Like, they brought Eric Johnson in for Sean Walker. Dramatic downgrade. Is it possible that, and again, this isn't me saying the defense sucks. I think a healthy defense could be decent next year. But this current defense during this 2-week stretch, could that be a big reason why, if not the biggest reason why, they are losing games? Because this defense can't do the things that got the Flyers in the standings position in the first place.
Yeah, this is definitely more of like a reason.
Not an excuse.
Right.
This is more of a reason than an excuse.
There's just no getting around it. The injuries were a big problem. And losing Sean Walker, who's apparently the only guy with the ability to break the puck out of the zone, that obviously hindered like the rush and like entirely
It clearly did slow down their transition offense, without a doubt.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the defense core that we started with was pretty good. The defense core that we're finishing with is not that great.
It's pretty bad. We got another super chat real quick from Gary B. What was option 1? Gary B, option 1 out of the what should we blame the most for this 2-week-long collapse? Option 1 was the goaltending. So that's why I said, seems like you're an option 1 person, Gary B. JP.
Yeah. So, are we going? Are we going?
Oh,
Still?
do we got going for option 4?
Oh yeah. So no, it's definitely.
We want to do a. Do we want to do an ad read?
Let's do an ad read.
Let's do an ad read.
Then we'll go to option 4.
Love an ad read.
Let's talk a little bit about Empire Today here, ladies and gentlemen. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring, so of course they have copycats, but they can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, speed, so they advertise low-quality products that simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs, and that's an important part, ladies and gentlemen. They keep shopping for Floor Simple with their curated product selection. Their virtual floor designer is a fantastic way, so you can see how floors will look in any space. It's easy, just a snap of a picture, and instantly see how the new floors will look in your room. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating, so you might want to talk to somebody today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident and you're getting honest upfront advice. And right now here, you can schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. See Empire Today/Empire for details. And of course, we got to do it.
Of course we do.
1-800-588-2300 Empire
Today.
Absolutely.
Yay.
And
So I do want to point something out because Barbara Carroll, who's a very active participant in our chats,
Hi, Barbara.
she's here a lot. Thanks so much for watching our shows this season, Barbara. She pointed out the power play. Now, here's the thing with the power play. I did not put the power play on my list of things to blame most, and here's why. The power play is god freaking awful, but it has been god freaking awful all year.
Mm-hmm.
It was really bad when the team was playing well. It's still really bad now. It's not like it's gotten worse. It's just the same level of shit.
Yes.
Has it maybe caught up to them now because all these other things are going wrong? Yeah, I mean, they could certainly use some freaking power play goals here and there.
Would be nice.
But the reason, Barbara, why I'm not including the power play as one of the big potential reasons why this collapse is happening is because that's not a new problem. This has been a problem all year.
They won with a bad power play.
It's frustrating as hell, but they won with a bad power play. They're not winning now, but I'm loath to blame it on the power play when they spent all year overcoming that. Like, they didn't spend all year overcoming the defense as it is now. They didn't spend all year overcoming shit goaltending. They didn't spend all year overcoming whatever is going on with the relationship between the players and Torts.
It's easy to say that take more shots on a night like tonight, but like it felt like every single time someone took a shot for the Flyers, it was either wide or too high.
Yeah.
Or it was just going right into
they're
the
not
goalie.
finishing either. I mean, that's true. Like, and some of that goes to option 5, which I'll get to in a sec, but want to do option 4 real quick because this is an interesting one. It's kind of more of an outside the box one, but I have heard some people make this point, and I think it's fair to bring up. Danny Briere. Reason being, the Flyers did sell at the deadline. They traded Sean Walker, so he was one of their best defensemen. And they traded for Eric Johnson, who apparently has been so underwhelming that he got scratched tonight. And Danny Briere chose not to acquire a goalie.
Right.
Now, Danny Briere would argue, and I think correctly, he would argue that this is a rebuild. He's making decisions for the future, and I agree with that. However, if we are just talking about reasons for this collapse right now, how much culpability, even if we understand the decisions and we might even agree with them, how much culpability for this collapse does Danny Briere's decisions at the deadline have?
Yeah, this one's interesting because I 100% agree with everything that he did, but also you can't deny that those moves are a large part of the reason why the Flyers are struggling right now, particularly losing team MVP Sean Walker.
Apparently team MVP Sean Walker.
But yeah, that's an interesting one because I wouldn't have undone anything that he did.
I mean, I might have undone
the Eric Johnson. Yeah, I don't know why that was.
He's a great dude. I enjoy interviewing him. So for me personally, I'm happy he's on the team because I got a couple of real good interviews out of him.
Yeah.
But like the Flyers have been outscored, I think, like 14-3 at 5-on-5 when he's been on the ice. It's been rough. He hasn't been helping.
But yeah, so that's like a weird one because yes, but also I can't be mad about it.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, like, look,
Conflicted.
the thing is that we still had to get those future assets, right? You still needed to get those future assets for this team.
If they're going to say it's a rebuild,
exactly,
you kind of had to do that.
Yeah.
Or else you had to straight up say, we're not rebuilding anymore. We're going for the playoffs.
Yeah.
With the goalie thing, though, number one, what was available at the time, right? Like, we were like contemplating Ranta. And number two, could Briere maybe had thought at that time Fedotov was an option?
I think 100%.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he didn't go out and get that
I
goal.
think that was part of it. However, Fedotov, well, I give Danny Briere and the entire Flyers front office all the credit in the world for pulling off the Fedotov thing on multiple levels. Great job. The idea that, like, get that done. Get him over here. And if getting him over here means putting him in the NHL lineup, fine. Do what you got to do. But the idea that Fedotov was going to come over from Russia and immediately save them and drag them to the playoffs was always nuts.
Well, some of us like to dream, Charles.
What I'm saying is that getting Fedotov,
I know.
undeniably a great thing. Love it. Super happy for the kid. If that was the goaltending answer that he had in his head, that was crazy because it was never reasonable to expect Fedotov was going to come over and be awesome.
Realistically, I would have rather had a veteran goalie, obviously, with Ersson especially. But, I mean, the options were slim to none. And, I mean, I guess they did.
Ranta was the big one. Because they could have claimed him on waivers. He was available for free. Presumably they didn't because they knew they had either one of or both of Kolosov and Fedotov coming over. In retrospect, it makes more sense why they didn't. However, it still meant you had to go a month with Felix Sandstrom as your backup, and you had to overwork Sam Ersson.
Or Cal Peterson.
And now Sam Ersson is cooked, and your backups that you've been throwing out there are all bad. It's just, they lost points.
Too.
They lost points by doing that. And while I am not going to rake Danny Briere over the coals, because as you said, and I agree with you, I mostly agree with the moves he made. It's just that if you're purely looking at this from a helping the team make the playoffs, his approach to the trade deadline absolutely is playing a role in this collapse.
Yeah, can't argue with you. You're right.
Looks like we got another super chat.
We got another super chat. Another
Gary. Yeah, we appreciate
Gary
it.
B. Gary B's just throwing us money. Thanks so much, Gary. Could tonight's goal by Ollie L, I don't like that, Ollie L, lead to a good final 5 games for him? Well, are we down to 4 now?
4.
I think we're down to 4 games. So good. Well, I guess 5 if you count this one.
Yeah.
So yes, final maybe. He's been racking up the scoring chances, and now
it's been nice to see.
Now that it looks like they're probably not going to make the playoffs, like
they're
now
playing loose now, Charlie.
Now they can play loose. Now they can play loose. That's how it works, right? Yeah, that's what I've been told. Hey, you know what? If he can be a bright spot in the same way that I'm thinking, like, what was it, 3 years ago when Wade Allison came up and was a bright spot at the end of a lost season? Poor Wade. Have fun in Nashville. Hopefully you find your place there. But if he could be something of a bright spot, that'd be great. Because I like the skill set.
Playing with Paling and Hathaway is truly contagious.
There we go. He's worked out pretty well on that line. Great pass by Hathaway to get him that goal. So.
It was a nice pass.
Yeah,
I'm happy for old Ollie L. That he scored his first NHL goal.
I like that.
This is the last one, the final option. And this is the one that fans probably don't want to hear.
Uh-oh. It's your fault, fans.
The explanation to blame is it's just all the outside factors. It's the fatigue. It's the Hart situation. It's just general regression from the fact that they were probably playing a bit over their heads for most of the year. It's the idea that something like this, especially given the injuries and the Hart situation, that this was kind of inevitable and that this isn't actually worth getting that angry about because they've had to deal with so much and this was just kind of destined to happen. That is our option 5, the logical, rational one that no one wants to hear right now.
Ask me about this one in 2 weeks. I'm not ready to be logical yet. I will say that it's everything.
It's everything.
It's all of those things.
It's yes.
It's pretty much everything we've gone over.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. It's all of these things. And that's what really sucks about it, because there was a point in this season where I thought to myself, holy shit, the Flyers are now the team getting the bounces. The Flyers are the team getting lucky.
Yeah.
And it has just 180'd to the complete other side, where we're back to the Flyers being cursed and nothing going the Flyers' way. And it's just like, I really thought we had gotten past it. And now we're like right back where we were 2 years ago.
Just like one of the main storylines here tonight. You allow 6 goals to the 4th worst team here.
All defensemen.
All defensemen.
All defensemen. What's even going on?
That just tells you everything. But Charlie, I think this is the one that I'm going to put the most blame on with just all the outside things. Because when you just watch this team, it just, especially for me, like I feel like there's like a mental hold on this team right now in the way that they're just straight up playing. But one thing I did want to look at, it is really hard to make the playoffs with a young team. A lot of those teams need some veteran players. We have some of those veteran players, and some of these veteran players have been with this team over the past couple of years. You know, I'm looking at the TKs of the world, the Laughs, the Farabees of the world. This has also been a team that the past couple of years, I believe, have underachieved a little bit there. So I wonder if, like Torch was talking about earlier as well on Monday after the game, if it's just the fact that we just don't have the pieces that have the mindset to win some of these games late.
Well, one thing that's going to be really interesting, and I guess the season isn't over. You got 4 games left. Maybe the Flyers pull a rabbit out of their hat. You never know. It's hockey. Weird things happen. The friggin' Penguins are back in a playoff spot,
exactly.
Okay? So that's my point. You never freaking know. I suspect that it's probably over. And if it is indeed over, it's going to be really interesting over the next few weeks and months, breaking down what the Flyers may do in the offseason. Because what this does open the door for is this idea of, you know, had the season ended in early March and the Flyers made the playoffs and had a plucky showing in the first round, it would have been a hell of a lot easier to be like, well, you know, we'll just like buy out Cam Atkinson and then run it back and add some young guys and maybe make a couple depth signings and we're good. After this happens, I'm not saying they're definitely going to, but I am saying that it opens the door for the possibility that they make some bigger changes to this team because they say the culture wasn't as strong as we thought it was. We need to, you know, remember at the end of last season when John Tortorella basically was like, we're going to need to make some subtractions.
Yes.
I wonder if this finish to the year will have them saying that again. That maybe we need to make some subtractions because maybe this isn't as strong culturally as we thought it was. And that opens the door for a lot of intriguing possibilities. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I do think it will be interesting to talk about it over the next few weeks leading into the offseason because we don't look like we're going to be talking about playoff hockey.
We all silly like the mayor.